There's a lot of amazing people who have been doing this a lot longer than I've been talking about climate change. How do we get their voices heard more?
It does sound like you're quite hopeful that maybe we can imagine our way and plan our way and work our way out of what seems to be a crisis. Definitely.
I think, to coin Cristiano Figueres' phrase, stubborn optimist, I think this is sort of where I'm feeling quite like I'm at the moment.
I'm Cate Blanchett, and I'm here with my dear friend and Climate of Change co-host Danny Kennedy, and it is our pleasure and privilege to be speaking today to His Royal Highness Prince William. Thanks you and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
And thanks for coming to this beautiful little studio in East London. I mean, I say little, but there's been some really, really big names who've recorded here. David Bowie, Gladys Knight, Nick Cave, Amy Winehouse, and us. Now us.
And it was the first solar-powered studio in all of Europe.
In the podcast, Danny and I have been talking a lot about the natural world and our connection to it, and how people can often disconnect from it, or they never get the chance to form a connection to the natural world. And I know, as a child, the suburb I grew up in, there was a lot of farmland and wood, and I relished that experience of sort of going off on a Sunday afternoon and having these adventures. It was full of mystery and wonder. And I wonder for you, what was the first moment or a strong memory of making that connection?
It started pretty young as well. I think watching a lot of documentaries, particularly with David Attenborough, I think as a young age that kind of really piqued my interest. There's a wider world out there to explore, and I think my grandfather and my father, both kind of having a deep passion and interest in this area for many years, has sort of piqued my interest and my curiosity. So growing up, I was surrounded by kind of this adventure and this idea of exploring and being out in the garden. I used to spend hours climbing trees, digging ditches and all sorts of things, hiding in dens and all sorts around the garden. So I used to love being out in the wild and the wet. So I think it grows on you a little bit. But I think the big moment for me that kind of I look back on now as a bit of a turning point was when I had some time off after school before university in my gap year, when I went to Kenya. And I spent some serious time in country, understanding from the experts out there quite what the challenges were, meeting local people, seeing how they lived with the wildlife, and you start to learn a bit about that. If you're new to the environmental space right now, I can understand why it's completely and utterly overwhelming. To get your head around exactly what's going on is pretty mind-blowing. And so for me, I like to go back to how I learned it and those building blocks of taking bit by bit. And then once you've understood one area, you can then latch another bit on, and not feel it's so overwhelming that how could we possibly fix any of this?
What do you think the barrier is, now to inspiring people to act?
I am still really optimistic that we can do this. But I'm really positive that things like the Earthshot Prize, things like COP, things like
this podcast
definitely
are moving the dial, and the more we speak about it, I do feel the more change will happen.
So I mean, you mentioned the Earthshot Prize, and both Danny and I were so thrilled and excited to be part of it. I was on the selection committee, the judging panel, and Danny was a prolific nominator through his organisation, New Energy Nexus. Where did the kernel of the idea originally come from?
So the sort of the genesis of the idea bred from a feeling rather than anything else. So again, but just before the Earthshot Prize, I'd been to Namibia, and I was just so blown away by the locals there and the work being done. And it was really giving me real positivity and real hope that we're doing this. And look, communities are thriving, but also the wildlife are thriving. And then I get home and I read the newspapers and I see articles and I talk to people, and the doom and gloom starts to set in more about the sort of bigger picture. And that contrast between some of the amazing things that are going on the ground versus the narrative and the general feeling amongst most people, that sort of contrast really bothered me. And I thought, well, come on, how do we, if we're going to get anywhere here, there's a lot of amazing people who have been doing this a lot longer than I've been talking about climate change. How do we get their voices heard more? How do we inspire people to say, we can fix this? And so the Earthshot Prize came out and evolved slowly from that.
For those of the listeners that haven't yet caught up with Earthshot, I'm sure they will after this, but what are the categories and what are the 5 Earthshot prizes?
Sure. So we we went through a number of phases with some serious expert panels. And I remember sitting around these tables, looking around and going, wow, these are some serious people in this room. What am I doing in here? And anyway, through a lot of democratic debating, we came down with 5 Earthshots that the sort of panel decided were the key areas we really need to focus on. And that was protect and restore nature, clean our air, revive our oceans, build a waste-free world, and fix our climate.
Excellent.
So each year you'll get 5 winners. And over obviously the 10-year period, we'll have 50 solutions. But not just that, we want to actually build and support all the finalists. So it creates a bigger network and a bigger chance of success.
You had this fantastic ceremony that I was terribly sad that work and the pandemic kept me from joining on. But there was so much hard work that went into the prize itself, but also particularly in the inaugural ceremony taking place during the pandemic. I mean, how did it feel after all that hard work to be there in the room?
Yeah, it felt pretty terrifying.
Terrifying, I thought.
Yeah, well, no, I think the build up to the world's largest environmental prize is something that was terrifying me for quite some time. I was like, really, we're going to pull this off? This is a big deal, guys. We're gonna, we're going to have to really push the boat out. Everyone's game went up about 3 notches, and yeah, really pleased and happy that it went off without too much of a hitch. So yeah.
But also, there's a pressure on a prize ceremony like this because, like a lot of events, this in particular, it has to be as green as possible.
Definitely, and that sustainability record was really important to us getting the award ceremony. And as it happens, I think we turned out in the end 5 tons of carbon was the overall thing. So 98% reduction on projections of what an event that size would actually deliver.
That's extraordinary.
So the first of these Earthshots we'll dive into is the Clean Our Air category. Could you just tell us what the goal of that shot is?
Sure. So the goal, Dan, is by 2030. We choose to ensure that everyone in the world breathes clean, healthy air at World Health Organization standard or better. So in India, particularly in Delhi, obviously people know quite a bad air pollution problem each year. One of the main causes of air pollution in India is burning of stubbles after the crops. And so this brilliant guy has come up with an idea to effectively take the crop residue, stuff that's left over. He can explain it better than I can, puts it through a machine manufacturing process that kind of erodes the smoke, if you like, in a basic form. And what's then left up is effectively fertilizer. So the idea being that it's then reused and economically benefits the farmer at the end of the process.
And we'll show this on a video now so we can sort of sit and watch. Vidyut Mohan is Takachar's co-founder, and this is him from New Delhi.
The day when we got to know that we won the Earthshot Prize, that's a day I'll never forget. Being recognized by the world's most prestigious environmental prize will help highlight the problem that we are working on. Our vision is that everyone should have the right to breathe clean air. I live in Delhi and the air quality here is pretty bad. A lot of it is contributed by the open burning of the agricultural wastes in farms surrounding the city. So I know my health and my family's health is personally affected by this, and I live through the problem. Takachar's clean air solution is a small-scale, low-cost, smoke-free machine that latches behind tractors or trailers and can be directly taken to farms and forests to process agricultural waste such as rice straws, rice husks, coconut shells. Our equipment has shown to prevent up to 95% of smoke emissions. But also at the same time, as an organization, our mission is to create doorstep livelihood opportunities in rural areas using agricultural waste. Ever since the Earthshot Prize, we've been really busy. Currently, we have 4 pilots running in different parts of the world. We have 2 pilots running in India, where in Kenya, we're working on rice husks to make fertilizers. And that pilot is currently catering to 5,300 farmers on an annual basis. Just the visibility that the prize has brought upon us has led to hundreds of people reaching out to us. As a target, we hope to scale to deploying 200,000 systems that will be able to prevent up to 2 million tons of smoke emissions in 10 years' time, which will help drastically reduce this problem on a worldwide scale.
That Kenyan pilot that Vidyut just mentioned, they're seeing the crop yields go up by 30% and revenues for the farmers go up by 50% because of this agricultural input, the supplement that they get out of it, the fertilizer stuff. And They're also reducing by 11,000 tonnes in this pilot the CO2 and 9,000 tonnes of waste that would be burnt and turned into air pollution.
There's so many wins.
There is, and it's so important that the local community are brought in. Vidget's hit on the idea that if you want this to work, the farmers have got to feel that it's beneficial for them. And so incentivising them economically by going, well, listen, you can turn this waste into something that's actually going to, be worth something for you. It's a win-win.
There's another key category, Revive Our Oceans. Could you explain to people a bit about that category?
Yeah. So Revive Our Oceans, we had a number of brilliant entries. The 3 finalists for that was Pristine Seas, which is more of a global marine protected area kind of solution around the world. Fantastic initiative. And we had Living Seawalls, which was, or we'll hear a little bit about, I think, in a minute. And the winner was Coral Vita, which is based in the Bahamas. And they are growing coral in the Bahamas at the moment. The idea being that we're going to scale that up massively, so it's around the world. But they're producing climate resilient coral at 50 times the speed than natural coral can be grown.
Well, let's go to the Living Seawalls crew, the ones you mentioned from our hometown of Sydney.
I'm Associate Professor Cate Blanchett. I'm one of the co-leaders of the Living Seawalls project, and we're based out of Sydney in Australia. Around the world, we've got a big problem with the amount of built structures that are being created in our oceans. The scale of the problem is quite immense. The amount of marine environment that we've modified with built structures is currently larger than the area of natural habitats like seagrass and mangroves. It's really important that we can protect our natural habitats and not just lose them to concrete coastlines that wouldn't support a lot of marine life. With our Living Seawalls project, our solution is modular habitat panels. We've really taken inspiration from nature and have features like sponge gardens, like oyster, like the root systems that we see on seaweeds. Because they're modular, they can be fit together as a mosaic. So we can combine any of our different designs together to create the kind of habitat that is most needed in the location that we're installing them at. And we know that marine life love these habitat panels. We've seen fish arriving within days and then within weeks. Seaweeds and invertebrates starting to grow on them. And after 2 years, we know that our Living Seawalls can support around 100 species and about 35% more species than we have on a traditional flat seawall. We have over 1,000 panels now installed, mainly in Sydney Harbour, but we do have a few sites around Australia and a few sites around the world. Being involved in the Earthshot Prize was really quite an exciting experience. In the past, we probably would have had an inquiry every couple of months about Living Seawalls, and since the Earthshot ceremony, it's more like a couple of inquiries a week. And they're coming from all over the world now. And we see a lot of opportunity over the next few years to start to see our dream of having a living seawall in every continent come to life. By the end of this decade, I'd love to see sustainable blue economy that really allows our children to still enjoy beautiful, clean, healthy oceans. They're so vital for our future.
There's such a beautiful simplicity to the Living Seawalls concept. And as Katie suggests, I mean, it's really possible to see how that could spread out to globally across many, many seas.
Definitely. And if you think about Sydney Harbour, which, Kate, you know better than I do, it kind of, it's a classic example that why couldn't you put Living Seawalls all up and down the Sydney Harbour? The Thames here, put it up the Thames, right? It's really quite, easy to do. It's not a sore on the eye. It's it's underwater. It's there, and it'll do a fantastic job. And the science behind it is, like you said, simple but effective.
I love the professor's point about the blue economy more broadly as well. Simple. I mean, we actually talk a bit about this in the podcast, the fact that there's this enormous industry of marine transport and fisher folk and other things that all need to be part of this solution.
Off the back of the Revive Our Oceans Earthshot, we've heard back that the President of Madeira has signed a partnership with Pristine Seas to extend marine protected areas.
Great.
And Costa Rica have announced that originally they had 3% of their marine protected areas. They're now going to go to 30%.
And the last Earthshot we'd like to focus on is one that sounds absolutely massive, which is Fix Our Climate. Could you expand a bit on that one? That sounds very enormous to the layperson.
It is, and actually it's the most daunting of all the Earthshots, really. For the first year, we had some very strong contenders for what could be done technology to fix our climate. Obviously, we had the finalist was Soul Bazaar, who were a fantastic Bangladeshi community solar-powered economic enterprise, if you like. And that's really taking off and has got huge legs to go further. Olu from Nigeria with his Reed Capsules, who I think we'll hear about in a second, who came up with these rechargeable energy bricks for sort of rural energy poverty areas. And the winner was AEM Electrolyzer, which effectively is modular hydrogen.
Let's go to Olabanjo, as you said, or Olu for short. He's the head of REDI, the Earthshot finalist from Nigeria.
I set out to build a solution that makes electricity accessible to all, irrespective of their social and economic background. There's over 600 million Africans living without access to electricity. Another 70 million in Nigeria specifically are connected to the grid. 24 years ago, I was a part of that population. Growing up, I struggled immensely with reliable electricity. There was a point in my life where there was zero access to electricity for roughly 2 years. And that's why myself and a couple of other energy entrepreneurs are working tirelessly in the global energy narrative of Africa, of the African continent, and of the world as a whole. REDI puts power in your hands. It's a compact battery system that allows people to rent the capsule at a corner store for a fee of less than 50 cents. So we automatically eliminate that upfront cost barrier in places like Nigeria, where most people live on less than $4 to $5 a day. It's a mobile swappable system that was designed to provide clean electricity to individuals and businesses anywhere and anytime. I think the beauty of Earthshot is that limitless access to resources, both human, relationship, possible capital, that we could leverage to scale our innovation for impact. And we're very, very excited about it. And we are obviously more than grateful for the opportunity. And that's really helped us bring our work to the global audience.
There's a massive impact on people not having electricity, obviously. I mean, it's light means safety, for women and girls. It's a really, really, these things that we take for granted.
And that's what's so exciting, is that some of the Earthshots are going to have even bigger impact in less developed worlds in areas than they are in more developed nations. So Capsule will have a huge influence on communities where, like you said, energy poverty is a big deal.
Even in its first year, the Earthshot's had such a profound impacts that we've been talking about today. How is it evolving and growing for 2022 and beyond?
So it's kind of all channeling and building up towards the end of this year. It's going to be in the US. We haven't quite decided where. A lot depends on where it goes. What I'd love to see personally is I'd like to see more women-led solutions and more Indigenous community-led solutions. But these next 9 months, what we've got to really focus on is the scaling of the 2021 winners and finalists. That's what's really important to us. That's I think the game-changing nature of what the Earthshot Prize is about. We've still got a lot of lessons to learn, but I do think that you can hear it from them themselves. The profile, the platform, and the support we're giving them is really going to help boost them.
I mean, it sounds like you're incredibly hopeful. I mean, just saying that there's, even if there's only a certain number of finalists and there a smaller amount of winners, if you have 1,000 people nominating, and that's just it's sort of an exponential growth in ideas and solutions. Because something that we've been talking about a lot in the podcast is how we talk about hope and positivity and disruption and how collective action can produce meaningful change. But it does sound like you're quite hopeful that maybe we can imagine our way and plan our way and work our way out of what seems to be a crisis.
Definitely. I think, to coin Christiana Figueres' phrase, a stubborn optimist, I think is sort of where I'm feeling quite like I'm at the moment.
Maybe that's what I am.
Yeah. She's given me a lot of hope that this can happen, and I believe it, and I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It is really inspiring. It's really hopeful. And I do believe we can make huge strides. It's the same way the Earthshot to me is a team game. And as you know, Cate, I said that to Prize Council members, all of you, it's everyone doing their bit and helping and supporting what we're trying to do. It's all of us in it together. In the same collective spirit, it would be great if we could tackle climate change and the environmental things the same way. I really do think it can be done in a much quicker time than we anticipate, because the solutions are out there. There is real solutions to these problems.
Well, your excitement and your positivity and your stubborn optimism, it's infectious. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been great to be in the same room, particularly when all of the work on the Earthshot Prize has been by necessity on Zoom this year. I mean, hopefully that won't be the case in 2022.
Hopefully not. It's been great talking to you guys. Thank you for having me, and it's great to see you both. And thank you for your help, Danny. Thank you for your help, Cate, on making the Earthshot what it's been. So
thank you.
Privilege.